your top story at this hour, Western Cape Premier Helen Zille's fate is now in the hands of the DA Federal Executive. On Saturday, she appeared before the party's legal commission headed by Glynis Breitenbach. The commission's findings will now be discussed by the Federal Executive Council. The Federal Executive will take the final call on whether the Western Cape Premier will indeed be charged and subjected to a disciplinary hearing. Zille faces party action for praising colonialism. And now in studio, I'm joined by Professor Sipho Siepe, political analyst, as well as Tsepo Khadima. A very good evening to you, gentlemen, and thank you so much for your time. I will start with you, Professor. Can you share with us what is the process of a disciplinary hearing within the DA?
Well, I think they will sort of make it quite clear. What is most important first is to determine whether there is a charge, whether the Premier Helen Zille has brought the organization into disrepute, and whether what she said is violates any law, any constitution of the DA, or even the constitution of this country. But what is most important for us is also to indicate that this is one of those fascinating moments for the DA. Some people will call it a moment of the Rubicon, whether you're going to cross it or not, whether you're not going to cross it. But most importantly, first, which is the more of an irony, Helen Zille is somebody who is seen as having created my money. Helen Zille was always desperate for a black voice. And there were many people within the DA who had served the DA for a longer time, who understand the policies of the DA, who are steeped in liberalism, and so who could articulate. But Helen Zille, in her desperation for a black person, ended up with my money. Of course, there have been other attempts that had actually failed. The attempt with Lindiwe Mazibuko, who discovered her blackness, and then you also had the fateful miscarriage that occurred between her and Mampela Rampela. That marriage did not last. It was one of those shortest marriages. So effectively what you have is that here is a man who has been made by Helen Zille. And the irony of history is whether that will be the same person who is going to be used to push the Zille out of power. But also if Zille is found guilty, or to have violated whatever the DA stands for, then there's going to be trouble, because effectively she may have to be asked to step down as a premier. Actually, there are many possibilities that emerge as a result of that. So this is a crunch time for the DA. But at the same time, those of us who have observed how whiteness and white supremacy works is that there is no way that a black person will be allowed to almost discipline a person who has contributed so much in the party. And we should not take away from Helen Zille's contribution in growing the party. She has done what Tony Leon was able to do. And I'm not too sure that my man has actually done anything closer to what Helen Zille has actually done. But most importantly, Helen Zille represents a body of opinion, not only within white people, but she also represents a body of opinion among some black people who are so happy to have been colonized. This is why young people at universities are talking about the decolonization of higher education and decolonization of education, because some of the people who are black, who have manned and led those institutions, have been very comfortable with colonization, with colonial imprint that you see within the universities. So if we're going to talk about Helen Zille, we must also extend it. That what does it say about those who have shown themselves to be very comfortable with the colonial imprint, with the statues that represent colonialism, with the curriculum that still promote whiteness and white supremacy.
And now, Mr. Khadima, I'm just going to bring you in, as we've heard the professor saying that Helen Zille was desperate for a black voice. Also, the fact that critics have also slammed Mosima Imane, that he has no real power. Do you think that this is an opportunity for the DA leader to demonstrate that such racial statements have no space within the party?
Well, if he no longer wishes to carry the title of leader of the Democratic Alliance, which I hasten to add that in the case of Mosima Imane, is nothing but a glorified clerkship. But if he no longer wishes to carry that title of glorified clerkship, called being called DA leader, he will revolt and speak in the strongest terms. But he will then, of course, his stay will be short-lived. We have to bear in mind that Mmusi Maimane has been within the Democratic Alliance not even 10 years. So one has to ask a question, is what exactly are the excellent skills or exceptional skills that he possessed to be able to lead a party that, when you look at the federal executive of the Democratic Alliance, you look at all the people that have been there, those people have been there since Moses. They've been there from 1978, 1981. And so they are old hands in terms of the leadership of the Democratic Party, which then evolved into being the Democratic Alliance. And what really qualified Mmusi at his young age more so to be able to lead a party like that is inexplicable. And I think, as Professor Siepe here aptly puts it, is because of perhaps maybe his oratory skills, that he could be able to sell this bitter pill to hopefully the black majority who don't seem to be wanting to take on that bitter pill, which in turn means that he cannot continue to lead. And we see him now, saying absurd things. For example, it was very intriguing that he says Premier Helen Zille. When he speaks of President Zuma, he says Jacob Zuma. That's Mmusi Maimane. So you have to wonder, but what is it here? Those other commentators who say Madam Zille, they don't say it in the most respectful terms. In fact, it's derogatory. And that's based on really her utterances, her posture, and the ideology that she represents. And maybe one has to also look at how the ANC seems to have missed this gift from God, if I can put it that way. That here they are able to now expose the Democratic Alliance truly for what it is, because I can assert that they will not be able to take any harsh action against Helen Zille, because what she represents and her posture is effectively the genealogy of the Democratic Alliance. So they will not be able to remove her from that position unless they want the party to go. Mmusi Maimane is no different from Martinus van Schalkwyk, who at a young age was elected to lead the National Party, or the erstwhile defunct National Party. And the old hands within the National Party, or what it was then to become the new National Party, they nicknamed him Kortbroek. So Mmusi Maimane, I think, will soon have from within the Democratic Alliance, if we don't know, he too will have a nickname that he will have to go by. So all we are saying is this: are the issues that really we are discussing now pertaining to the utterances, the posture, and the ideology of Helen Zille, are they serious? I say yes, absolutely. They are very serious. Because for us as a country to be able to move forward, for us to be able to have a non-racial, truly democratic society whereby opportunity can live for more people, we need restitution, we need transformation, we need empowerment of the black majority who for decades have been excluded. We need land reform, we need land restitution, we need economic transformation. That is certainly the language that is missing within the vocabulary of the Democratic Alliance as a whole, both amongst the black leaders within that, or those that carry the title of leader within the Democratic Alliance, being black, and the white establishment that is very, very powerful. And unless the clique in Constantia that really runs the Democratic Alliance decides that it's time for Helen Zille to go, Helen Zille will stay put. That you can be assured about. But that in turn means that, therefore, if the ANC misses the opportunity and of also putting the economic freedom fighters in the sport, because we know that the economic freedom fighters, they are in this marriage with the Democratic Alliance, and more so in Gauteng and as well as in Eastern Cape, in the coalition government. And to so do, it means that the economic freedom fighters, for as long as they stay within that marriage, it means that they wholeheartedly approve everything that the Democratic Alliance stands for. For the Democratic Alliance, in fact, has gone on to say, look, We are the leaders in Tshwane. We are the leaders in Johannesburg. We are the leaders in Nelson Mandela Bay. And whether there's coalition or not, but this is a DA-led municipality or DA-led metro. So it means, therefore, that the economic freedom fighters themselves have lost their mojo. They have lost their voice because now they have gone into marriage with the Democratic Alliance. And the Democratic Alliance, will it change? And I say to you, there will be no changes of any kind whatsoever. What does that mean for our country? It means that we will continue to postpone the need for real, radical transformation, socio-economic transformation, which is what we badly need.
And now let me just bring in Professor again, just in closing. Now we know that the BLF has laid charges on Helen Zille. What are the procedures when it comes to this? Could she most probably get a fine?
No, I think that's why I say the first thing that we need to ascertain is whether an expression of opinion that can be demonstrated to be shared by many people would itself be considered to be racist or insensitive. The fact that somebody can say something that is insensitive does not make it necessarily racist. There are people, as I said, within the white society today, and within the academic enclaves, and within some black people who think that colonialism was good, or some aspects of it were good. So if a black person were to praise that, would you also accuse them of racism? So there must be something that needs to be addressed. But the issue of insensitivity, Helen Zille is a serial delinquent. It is not the first time that her hands on the phone were uncontrollable. I mean, we remember not so long ago when she referred to people who were born in this country as refugees, and it took almost the chorus of condemnation from the media, from everybody, before she could change. And you could see even right now, she is unrepentant about her beliefs. But we should not get to a stage where beliefs are criminalized, because whether you criminalize it does not mean that the person is going to change. But the real point is that we have seen people who have been comfortable with colonialism and embracing some aspects of it. So Helen Zille, if you're going to punish her and find that what she said is racist, then you must bring a whole group of people who share the same sentiments and who have expressed it in a different way. The only problem with her is that what she says, she could not contain what's in her mind and in her heart. But that is something that is said. But the most important thing for that Tshepo was also raising, which is very critical, is that if it's in the interest of white supremacy to keep a black person, to sustain white supremacy, they will do so. If they think Helen Zille has become a liability to white supremacy, because you can be a liability being a white person to a white supremacist agenda. And that also includes where people can sidestep and bring black people in, black people who are going to advance white interests. So what will be interesting now is whether they have reached a stage where Helen Zille is a liability. But at the same time, we also know that despite his oratorical skills, Mmusi Maimane has not been found to have much depth. Actually, if you listen to the EFF, they said when they were talking about coalitions, they became so exasperated with him that they decided to say, no, let's talk to the real people. And they say themselves that we started talking to James Self because they could see that with James Self, that's where the power was. It was not anywhere. So that's why we are saying this is the crunch time. But the ANC must also, in as much as it has been a focus of criticism, it also must also expose the weaknesses of the opposition, which is where the ANC, maybe because being a big organization, you can afford to be arrogant, not to even bother with the opposition. But part of the strategy is both being offensive and defensive. They need to expose that this coalition by the EFF and the DA is simply not consistent with where we're going. And Helen Zille's pronouncements are consistent with a white supremacist agenda.
Unfortunately, I have